Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Build Computers. Today we are taking a look at the Phanteks Eclipse P400s Tempered Glass Edition. Alright, so today we're looking at the Phanteks Eclipse P400, and this is the P400s Tempered Glass Edition. There are a couple of variations of it. This is the top end one. This is the one that you want to buy. So this case has appeared before in my shop. One of my students bought one of these cases for their computer, and as soon as he took it out of the box I was like, wow, that's a drop dead gorgeous case. I want one of those. So we've brought this in for a computer build that we're going to be doing this week. One of the things that I really love about this case is firstly the price. It comes in at approximately £80 plus or minus a bit, so about 75 to 85 pounds, that kind of money. Now first of all, that puts it in direct competition with the small with the small Corsairs and the small NZXTs, like the Corsair 400C, which is what my work computer is in, and the NZXT S340 Elite, which is the case that I've got my eye on. And those cases are approximately the same price, but they're smaller than this one. So this one gives you something that is a bigger case. If this was made by NZXT or Corsair, there's no way it'd be coming in at under £100. And also, this is with tempered glass as well. So firstly, I want to talk about those two big headline features on it that it has. So the tempered glass. Tempered glass is all the rage at the moment, and I'm not a big fan of bandwagons. I've been building computers long enough to see various fashion trends come and go, and I know the good ones from the bad ones. Now tempered glass, this is a good one in my opinion, and the reason why is with tempered glass side panels, they're a bit less convenient because, for example, to take this thing off, I've got to undo these 4 thumb screws and then very carefully lift it away. It's not very good if you want quick and common access to your computer. However, this tempered glass doesn't scratch without a huge amount of work. Tempered glass is strong stuff. You'll be amazed how much punishment these things can take without breaking. They're stronger than they look. So this means that it's not going to scratch up when you clean it or when you brush against it. Whereas common cases with plastic side panels, they're often made from really naff plastics that are sort of polythene based. They scratch incredibly easy. Just polishing them with glass cleaner or common surface polish will put micro scratches in them, which is something that I've discovered with my Corsair 400C. Which, you know, I've not given it any abuse, but when I look at the surface of it, I can see micro scratches all across it, which is really disheartening when it's a case that you look after as well, whereas you will not get that with tempered glass. It will stay crystal clear. And the other advantage of it as well is, regardless of the amount of scratches, it is naturally much clearer than plastic is anyway. Even disregarding the scratches, my 400C's window puts a very slight shimmer on what you see through it. There's a very slight ripple effect, and when you remove the side panel from the computer, the interior looks a lot clearer. Whereas this tempered glass is crystal clear see-through. I mean, this is very slightly smoked. It's very slightly darkened for effect, but the actual, in terms of how clear and how focused everything is inside the case, it is literally like the side panel isn't there at all. So I'm a huge fan of tempered glass. It is one of my most favourite things to hit the modified PC scene in recent history. So moving around to the back of the case, this case follows what I call the sticky outy bit approach, where instead of having a step in for the PCI expansion, we have this bit that sticks out. So this I'm not so much of a fan of because you tend to have a bit of a stamped metal back and they feel lower quality to me, and they also inherently often have this kind of design on the PCI hold down where you have this weird kind of metal bracket that unscrews and moves around. I don't like these, I don't like this design. It feels cheap, it looks cheap in my opinion. However, this is at the back of the computer which you're never going to be looking at, so I'm not particularly fussed. It wasn't bad enough to make me not like this case. This is a small nitpick. But as you can see, we do have full height ATX, and also, as you can see from the general height of the motherboard tray, there's very little wasted space here. We've got a full height ATX case However, the case itself is still relatively compact. It's not much bigger than my Corsair 400C, which I consider to be a compact case. And then of course we've got the power supply bay down the bottom there. The power supply bay, it looks like we do have to insert the power supply from inside the case, which makes mounting the power supply a little bit awkward, but again, nitpick. There's no real problem with that at all, just a design observation. We've got a single 120mm rear fan mount here, and this does have adjustable rails. As you can see, we've got slots there, so this fan can move up and down as required. Although in the vast majority of cases, you're probably going to want it all the way down the bottom to clear a water cooling rad or something like that. But it can move around, which is nice. And it looks like we have got a 3-pin fan that's come fitted as standard. It'd be nice if we had some 4-pin fans in there, because, you know, never not PWM, but still, we're not going to complain about that. Moving around to the front, we've got a fairly slab front to this case, and if I just lift it up a bit, as you can see, we've got the Phanteks logo down the bottom here. This is a nice sort of shiny mirrored effect on the logo, so you get a little bit of shimmer there just to add a little bit of animation to it. Now, this front bit all lights up. You get ground effects around here from the LEDs in the case, and as with the rest of the LEDs that we'll talk about in a bit, it's all adjustable. You can turn them on and off, and I believe they are RGB as well, so it can be whatever colour you want it to be. And moving up to the top, we've got the white accent up here that matches the white accent on the interior. This case is available in various colours, so I've gone with the black and white one, but you can get all black or you can get this in black with red accents. The case also comes in all white as well. And then under the top here, we've got along here, we've got these icons here. So we've got a fan controller, light controller, and a reset indicator. And there are actually tiny little buttons there. And as you can see there are actually buttons underneath that top bit. So that gives us all the functionality of a fan controller, lighting, and reset, but they're completely invisible. And you can just go, whoop, and you can just press those buttons there. They're not easy to get to, but theoretically these are not buttons that you need to commonly press, so they're instantly accessible but out of sight. And then on top, we've got a speck of dust or whatever. There we go. We've got a nice big confident power button. It's a tactile switch, so it's got a bit of a clacky sound to it. Not a fan of those. I like anti-vandal switches. They're nice and smooth and quiet, and they make a switch noise, not a click noise. But whatever. And we've got 2 USB 3s, microphone and headphone. So arguably there are cases that have got more front USBs. It's sometimes nice to have 4, but personally if you need to have more than 2 things plugged into the front of your case, you should probably reorganize your cables anyway. And on the top of the case we have these 2 panels which come off with a little bit of soundproofing on them. These are magnetic, and they remove to reveal the dual 140mm fan mounts at the top, which you can either put some fans in there or you can put your water cooling radiator or whatever you want. So let's just pop those back on. And again, it's nice that these can be covered up when they're not in use, because in a case like this, certainly when I build in this case, we're going to be front mounting the radiator in this. So it's nice to be able to cover up those fan bays that aren't going to be in use. Alright, let's take this side panel off and check out the interior. Okay, so with the thumb screws removed, the glass panel hasn't just dropped off. How easily does that fall out now? Ooh. Okay, it's reasonably secure. So I would exercise extreme caution when removing this. However, it doesn't exactly fall out, which is nice. I was a bit concerned about that. So as you can see the level of smoking we have on the glass here. It's very slight, but you can immediately see the bright, vibrant white paint on the inside now we've removed it. Okay, so on the inside of the case, as you can see, it's very clean here. There are no drive cages inside, which puts this squarely in the category of what I call a modern case. Now that's not to say that other cases, for example NZXT's H440 that has a full height drive cage in it, it's not to say that that's not modern, but this follows the new meta of no drive cages, because a lot of system builders now have discovered that in most modern computers you have at most a 2.5-inch SSD and a single 3.5-inch hard drive. And for that reason, we found ourselves asking the question, why do we need these full height drive cages that you see in so many cases? And the answer to that is we don't need them. They just take up space. So now, by removing that entire drive cage, we've now got all this space at the front of the computer for a nice, huge water cooling rad, and all this free space here. And it also means that we can put in big, huge graphics cards, and there's no issue with fitting them in, there's no issue with tidying the cables to them or anything like that. So under here we'll find a couple of hard drive mounting bays where we can put the 1 or 2 hard drives that you might want in this, and then your SSD, you're either going to mount that round the back here, which we'll see in a minute, in one of the 3.5-inch bays, or failing that, if you're ultra modern, you can use an M2 card that sits right on top of your motherboard, so you don't need any cables or drives in there at all. And what I particularly love about this case is, in addition to having the usual sort of rubber grommets for your cables to come out of here, we've got these little doorways here that can be opened and removed. So depending on where your graphics card is or where any other important cables are, you can have the PCI Express lines come out and just go straight through a door that's at exactly the right height. And also that applies to any other cables that you need to route through there for fans or whatever. So we also have another 120mm fan at the front here. Again, this is a 3-pin fan, so it's probably a cheap little thing, which it's up to you whether you're using those or not. If you're mounting water cooling and stuff like that, you're probably going to have better fans than these ones with your equipment. However, it's nice that they've included a couple there, so you've got the minimum amount to get some good airflow in the case. But as well as having the filter on the bottom of the case, we do also have a vented top panel for the power supply area here. So you can actually put your power supply fan side up if you don't want to be intaking from underneath the case. This is particularly important if the computer is going to sit on the floor, because even with that dust filter, you're going to have to change that dust filter out almost on every couple of weeks for a computer that is sitting on the floor, drawing in all the dust out of your carpet or hardwood floor. So finally, other things of note, we also have a couple of holes along the bottom here, so you can bring your front panel cables up to the bottom of the case. So these are fairly well positioned, and they're nice and large as well. So even once the motherboard is in there, you're going to have plenty of clearance to get the cables through, and still have them nice and out of sight. So the interior, straightforward, very nice. Let's just pop that back panel off so we can check out what's around the back. On the back panel again, we have a little bit of soundproofing here. So this is slightly soft. It's not very thick. It's not the same kind of soundproofing that you'd see in an NZXT case, which is big, heavy-duty soundproofing that will actually do something. I'm not convinced how effective that sound deadening will be, but it's a nice touch to have it there. It certainly won't amplify the sound of the fans by having them in an enclosed box. So let's spin this around, and as you can see, we've got a really nice clean back here. We've got these lovely Velcro tiebacks here. Now these are really nice. I love it when cases have these on, because it means that you can tie all your cables back but still have quick access to rearrange them if you add or remove anything from the case. So nice touch. I like this a lot. It means I don't have to zip tie stuff. So we've got a Serial 88 power connector here. That's going to provide power to the fan controller and probably to the lights as well. So we'll have that connected up, and then we've got a couple of fan connectors at various intervals here. We've got some sticking down the bottom, and we've got one up here, and that is going to power all the devices in this computer. So we've also got various tieback points around. We've got some little hooky bits here that we can put things on, and up here, and we've also got a couple of zip tie points around the top here as well. So there's plenty of places to zip tie cables back. Then for the 2.5-inch drives, for any 2.5-inch SSDs you're using, we've got these two fellas here. Now, does this just pop out? I think it does, yeah. So these just pop off. They are screwless. And this is pretty decent. I'm not a big fan of having your 2.5-inch SSDs around the back. I don't think there's enough room back here for these. But this hold down mechanism is actually really good, because it's toolless, so I can just slot that on there, and that just clicks into place. It's very firm as well. That's not going to fall out. And it provides enough clearance from the backplate that the cables that I connect to the drive are not going to be strained. A lot of the 2.5-inch bays that you find on cases, I do not like them because there's just not enough space to connect the cables to them without really straining the serial ATA power leads. And also, you know, forget putting 90-degree SATA connectors on them. Whereas those look actually plausibly useful. Unfortunately, I'm not going to use them because I use M2 SSDs now. But if you want them, they're there. So nice touch. The 3.5-inch bays, we've got 2 of them down here. That slides out. And we have a genuinely toolless connection system here. These side bits can unplug, so you can put the drive into this tray, and then these 2 prongs stick in to hold the drive in place. So you don't need to screw the hard drive into this, which makes it actually toolless. Most cases that have these plastic trays, you have to screw the drive into the tray. And in my opinion, that defies the point of having the tray in the first place. You may as well screw it directly into the case. So nice that it's got a genuinely toolless design. You can put 2.5-inch drives in this as well. It does have the screw holes for that, but you will need to screw the 2.5-inch drive into that. But if you don't want to use these parts, you can put your 2.5-inch SSDs there as well. So that goes in there. Right. So last thing we've got to check on this. Let's do how easy is it to take off the front panel for access to the front. Now, some cases make this very easy, some make it very difficult. So I'm just going to go for a grab and pull here. Here we go. Beautifully easy. Very nice. And this has got metal in it, so it's nice and high quality. That came off very confidently. And look at that, I lie, it does have dust filters. We've got a dust filter at the bottom and at the top there. So this front panel is filtered. So that is a really nice touch. They're very subtle, those filters, but they're nice and small, so those are really easy to remove and clean. Whereas most cases will have a full height screen across the top. So that's a really nice front panel. Again, we've got that little bit of sound deadening there just to stop echoing. So it does seem like you probably have to take off both side panels. Can I do that one-handed from the front? Yes, yep, I can take it off from one side. So you can take that front panel off without having to take the back panel off. So that's nice, I like that a lot. This case is really nice. So let's put that back on. There we go. Let's have a look in the accessories box to see what we get in there. So we have an LED light strip. So this is an RGB LED light strip that we can put anywhere we want in this case, which is really cool. We can choose where the LEDs go. So we can put those in the most opportune location. It looks like it's sticky back and it's going to be powered by the LED controller at the top there. And it's probably standardized, so theoretically you could probably hook that up to a gigabyte motherboard with its own LED controller as well if one was so inclined, or perhaps even to something like an NZXT-Q system or similar. So nice. Then we've got a set of screws. So we've got thumb screws in there, we've got fan screws, we have coarse and fine thread screws, so really good selection of case screws to get you started, and some zip ties. And then at the bottom here, we've got some mesh filters. So these mesh filters will go on the top here. So if you're using these top fan mounts, you can put these mesh filters along the top just to make it look nice. And they've got some nice little magnetic strips around the edge, so they'll clamp on into place and hold themselves there with no screws. That's nice. That's really nice. That's what the Corsair ones have. So again, we're seeing the same kind of Corsair quality without the Corsair price tag, and I like that a lot. Okay, I think it's time we build a computer in this, and then we can see what all the fans and the lights and all the rest of it, the jazz, looks like. So, I will see you guys after the cut. If you want more information on what it was like to build in this case, check out the accompanying video that will be coming up with this one to see more details on how I built inside it and how it all went together. So the built case looks absolutely fantastic. This case was such a dream to build in. There was so much space in it. We've got this entire cavity behind here to hide cables in, and with the space that we had behind the motherboard tray as well, I had no difficulty getting cables out of sight. The only slight problem is, with a fairly large motherboard, but still a sort of standard issue gaming spec motherboard, it was a little bit tight getting the ATX cable into place there, and in addition to that, there's no convenient holes over here for just a couple of fan cables. If I had a big ass graphics card that stuck out to here, then I'd want to open these up and have my power cables going through there. but I don't want to remove one of these blanking covers just to put two noodly little fan cables through. So that was not ideal. These things need to be like a sort of, they need a bit of a hinge on them just so you can poke just some small wires through them or something like that. But nitpicking overall, the LED strip is in place down the side here. This LED strip has magnetic latches on it, so I can put it wherever I want, and more importantly, I can move it around again really easily if I change my mind. It's also full RGB, so as I press the RGB button at the top of the case, I can change the colours of the lights. It goes through a preset of colours, but it's got a pretty good selection in there. We've got various pinks, purples, reds, orange, sort of a yellowy green, solid green, sort of sea colour, blue, and then back to white again. So a good selection of basic colours that will suit most of your colour schemes. And with the white interior that I chose here, that just sort of bounces that light around the case a lot better and just adds a bit of sort of a bit of life to the case, to be honest. I love the contrast that we got with this colour scheme. And those RGB colours also change the colour of the power button at the top and also the accent lighting at the front of the case there as well. So really nice all around. So all in all, this was just such a textbook build. The other observation that I made while I was building in the case is that the whole thing is very lightweight. While once I'd removed the panels and things like that, this case hardly weighs anything. And obviously once you've added in all the components, the weight comes back on again. However, compared to a lot of computers that seem to be seriously heavy once you finish building them, this one was really manageable, which is good for a computer that you're expecting to move around to a LAN party or something like that. So all in all, solid case. I'm really happy with it, and I'm definitely going to be recommending it to other customers that are looking to build a new computer. I'm still a huge fan of cases like the Corsair 400C and the NZXT S340 Elite. I find the more compact size means that we don't end up with this sort of wasted space that we have here. However, if you want to build in a slightly bigger case to have more breathing space or to accommodate bigger graphics cards, this is definitely a perfect alternative to those. And with the price tag being what it is, I think it's fantastic value for money. So, all in all, solid marks all around. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time.